Hi everyone, you're watching the Virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Luda. So today's topic for discussion will be on decoding inquiries under the Customs Act, the GST Act and PMLA vis-a-vis the fundamental rights of the accused. And PMLA here being referred to as the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now that's a very interesting topic. And one thing that every person or every viewer who's watching this needs to understand is that does every investigation or inquiry that takes place, does it qualify to be a judicial proceeding under the provisions of Section 2I of Criminal Procedure Code? Do they qualify to be a judicial proceeding? Or can parties who are undergoing this process are allowed to engage the counsel of their choice? Now, there are a catena of judgments on this point, but we decided to take assistance of a very articulate lawyer, Mr. Sahiban Naqvi, and who is a practicing advocate at Rajasthan High Court, Jaipur bench, both on the original and the appellate side, since July 2016. Now, just to give you all a brief introduction about our speaker, he has been appointed as amicus in various suo motu writ petitions pertaining to the COVID crisis in the year 2020. He has also represented the Rajasthan Board of Waqf as a panel counsel, represented a number of clients, appeared before and put in appearances before the Honorable Calcutta High Court, Bombay High Court, Delhi High Court as counsel. His area of expertise include criminal matters, constitutional matters, and specializes in white collar crimes. So thank you so much, Mr. Sahiban Naqvi, for joining us today. And so the stage is set, the floor is all yours, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jai Bhaiya, for this wonderful opportunity that you gave me to enlighten the viewers about this concept. And at the same time, I can also revise this concept. Now, my topic is that how the inquiries are being conducted under this Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Customs Act, and GST Acts. Now, all of us are very much aware about the white collar crimes. Now, what do you mean by white collar crimes? I think most of you are much aware about white collar crimes, and I think it's recently the Supreme Court in various judgments, be it of in the case of P. Chidambaram, etc., and all that, has stated that the white collar crimes are rising in these countries and all that. So now, what is the exact connotation by which you can say what is a white collar crime? Now, what a white collar crime predominantly operates and destroy the economy of a country. Just say, for an example, I'll give you a very basic example of it. A meager, what do you call, a basic term for a white collar crime started initially for hawala transactions and all that, ranging from benami transactions, generating fake input tax credit receipts, and all that. So these are all the catena of the white collar crimes, majorly targeting upon the government for evasion of tax. That is very serious offense, and it should entail it entails a very serious consequences. Now, so you must have heard about like many persons receiving summons from enforcement directorate, be it of GST, DG of Directorate General of Customs Act, DG, and all that. So now, what is it? What in this lecture I'll be dealing about how do you deal with those summons and all that. And now it's a common phenomena that under the Indian law that even the accused persons do have their fundamental rights, and no one should be hurt, no one should be punished unheard. Now, I'll be dealing with what are the options available for a person when he's summoned by, be it of Enforcement Directorate or the similar agencies. Now, firstly, I'll be dealing with three acts here: Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Goods and Services Act, GST, and this Customs Act. Now, with respect to I'll start with the Customs Act. Now, from where the entries start for this offense. I'll just read out Section 108. Section 108 goes as power to summon persons to give evidence and produce documents. Now, instead of reading the whole section and to save time, I'll just give you the gist of these sections. The concerned officer appointed under Section 108 has the powers to summon a person by issuing a show cause notice, commonly known as SCN, by giving an evidence, demanding his or her presence with respect to certain acts alleged therein. Now, what is more important under section 108 is that all persons so summoned shall be bound to attend either in persons or by an authorized agent as such officer may direct, and all persons so summoned shall be bound to state the truth upon the subject respecting which they are examined and make statement and produce such documents and other things as may require, provided that the exemption under section 132 of Code of Civil Procedure Code shall be applicable to any requisition for attendance under this section. Clause 4, this is the very important clause which I'll be focusing upon. Every such inquiry as aforesaid shall be deemed to be a judicial proceedings within the meaning of section 193 and section 228 of the Indian Penal Code. Now, after 108, now there is a power to arrest which is given under section 104. If an office, I'll just read it. I'll just read the initial 3 lines. If an officer of a customs empowered in this behalf by general or special order of the principal commissioner of customs or the commissioner of the customs has reason to believe that any person in India or within the customs have whatever committed an offence punishable under section 132 or section 133 or 135 or section 135A or section 136, he may arrest such person and shall as soon as may be informed him of grounds for every such arrest. Now, instead of reading more and more section, I'll just give you the basic idea of this Customs Act. And generally, the GST Act is, with respect to the procedure, is more or together similar to the Customs Act. Even the summoning procedure is more and less similar to the Customs Act. So, instead of reading the separately, I'll be dealing with the GST Act, but I'll focus on the Customs Act. Now, firstly, the person which has been they have described as an authorized agent to attend on behalf of the person summoned does not include an advocate. Firstly. Secondly, if a person is summoned under section 108, the concerning officer can arrest him under 104. That is the inherent power of the customs officer. I'll just say one more thing. The customs officer are not police officers. They are innumerable judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, starting from Om Prakash versus Union of India. It's a 2012 Supreme Court judgment. I'll give the citation instead of reading the whole citation, I'll give you the names of the judgment because I think it will take more time. And whoever wants the citation, I can provide it. So now this was the landmark judgment of 2012. I think it was authored by Honorable Justice Altamas Kabir, which says that the customs officer are not under the definition of a police officer, so they cannot be equated with the police officer. And these statements which are being taken under section 108 cannot be equated under statements taken under section 161 of CRPC, which means that under section 161 CRPC, the statements are not admissible in evidence, which is a common parlance, which everyone knows that section 161 statements CRPC are corroborating evidence. We can corroborate it with respect to 164 and the court statements, but they do not entail any predominance with respect solely 161 is the corroborative evidence now. But the statements given under section 108 are admissible in evidence. That is a settled law. Now, what if the person is summoned under section 108 and he has an apprehension that he might be arrested, or he apprehends that there will be a coercive measure, whatever it is. Now, in this topic, I'll be dealing with how to proceed with such inquiries on a part of the other side, from the accused side. That is my whole topic of this. So I'll just tell you one more thing. I will not brief you about each and everything. I will be telling you the thing which is the settled law, and for saving the time. Now, firstly, there is a judgment of Supreme Court of 1992 of Pool Pandi, which says that merely summoning of a person by the authorities does not make him an accused, deemed accused. It's a 1992 landmark judgment of Supreme Court, Pool Pandi, which says it. So, if a person apprehends arrest under section 108, that is a natural common phenomena that if a person is summoned under section 108 and the officer found him an officer found the reason to arrest him, they can arrest him section 104. But if you go by the judgment of the Supreme Court of Poolpandi, and there is one more judgment which got from Rajasthan High Court, Padamchand Jain. In Padamchand judgment, it was an anticipatory bail application filed before the Rajasthan High Court. The person was summoned, and he immediately filed a bail application. However, it was found that this bail application under Section 438 is not applicable, as there is no apprehension on the count that the person being summoned does not categorically comes under the definition of an accused. So it was held to be non-maintainable. Similar was the Poolpandi, that is of 1992. Padamchand was decided in favor of union by the Honorable Rajasthan High Court, with only condition that after parting with the judgment, the Honorable Rajasthan High Court gave a time to the investigating agency that if you want to arrest an accused, you have to give them notice for a certain period. The union took it to the Supreme Court on this count only ki when the case has been decided, no blanket order can be passed. Got decided in favor of union, and Supreme Court finally, apart from it, settled the law, upheld to the extent of the portion of the Rajasthan High Court that a person summoned cannot come under the definition of an accused. So there is a bar under Section 438 which is not applicable. So what do you do? You got a summon from under Section 108 of the Customs Act, and for which there under the GST says that for Goods and Services Act, there is the provision which Section 70. Similar to it, power to summon person to give evidence and produce documents. It's more or less similar to the Indian Customs Act, not exactly, but more or less similar to it. Now, what will you do? If a person got a summon under Section 108, he cannot move to the High Court, or he cannot move to the court since under Section 438 because there is a rider. He's not an accused, mere receiving a summon. So now the proper now I'm not telling about the proper remedy. How can this topic be interpreted under this aspect? If challenging a show cause notice is altogether a different part. The proper remedy, if you want to seek a protection from arrest, is to file a writ petition under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. I'll relate this with the judgment of Kumari Hema Mishra. Kumari Hema Mishra is a 2014 judgment of Honorable Supreme Court during the times that in the state of Uttar Pradesh, there was no concept of Section 438. So what people used to do is that they used to file a writ petition under Article 226 of the Constitution of India, and under 226 they used to get an interim protection, be it in terms of 438. Suffice to state that the writ court is never the writ court has powers to any extent. Kumari Hema Mishra was a landmark judgment on this point, which states that whenever there is an omission, it's not states that it can be interpreted in the manner thereof whenever there is an apprehension of an arrest where Section 438 is not applicable, a person can move under Article 226. Now, this Kumari Hema Mishra judgment again got dealt in Habibul Jilani judgment, that is of 2017 Supreme Court, which sort of differentiated the Kumari Hema Mishra judgment. But again, in 2020, we have the case of Arnab Goswami, in which under Article 226, the remand order was challenged, which says that even a 226 court has so much of power, even to circumscribe the powers under Section 438 CRPC. It's altogether a different topic. It talks about the canons of the CRPC. Now, coming to this topic, now, and after receiving a summons under Sections 108 of Customs Act, the basic remedy will be to file a writ petition under Article 226, provided you should have an extraordinary case seeking an interference by the honorable court. The first thing will be filing a writ petition before this honorable High Court, making out an extraordinary exceptions case warranting an interference by the honorable High Court acting under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. Again, I repeat this, all these are my interpretations and my contentions, which I believe can be useful for lawyers if they want to interpret the judgment of the Supreme Court or the writ jurisdiction vis-a-vis the Customs Act. Now, the second safeguard which I believe could be to seek a video recording of the inquiries under the inquiries which are being conducted by Enforcement Directorate or the under being it of a Prevention of Money Laundering Act or GST or the Customs Act. Now we have a Supreme Court judgment in passed in 2020, late 2020 or late 2020, which says that now every police station being of an or any office of Enforcement Directorate, Customs, DG should have a video recording. So that aspect has been now being settled by the Supreme Court. So I will not delve into this. But before this judgment, there was a shout that the proceedings before this should be recorded, owing to the apprehension of the various people that they are not treated well and all that. The major landmark judgment on this point is of Rajinder Kumar Arora and Vijay Sajnani, both of the Supreme Court judgments, which says that the video recording can be done. Now, I've dealt with the first point, how to seek how an interim protection can be sought from a court, provided you have an exceptional case and which warrants the interference by the Honorable High Court. That depends upon case to case, as being more enshrined in the case of Kartar Singh, which says that a categorical circumstances which warrants the interference by the Honorable High Court under 226. So that's of a case to case basis, but which I deem a person could do if a summons has been received. He has been received with the summons, is powerless, so he can try this procedure, and which I think is a useful and of lately can be used, provided you have an exceptional circumstance. Secondly, you can seek the video recording of the provisions. Now, third point, which I want to ponderate, you can have an assistance of an advocate or a PIDA counsel at the time of inquiries under the Customs or GST or this called PML Act. But there is a provision under the Customs Act which says that there is no bar, but the authorized agent will not include a counsel or an advocate. So as a matter of right, you cannot have. Obviously, an High Court acting under Article 226 of the Constitution of India, depending upon on a case-to-case basis as to how are the nature of case-to-case basis as the interference of the counsel is required or not, or with certain directions or not, the judgment which are being operating in this field, Pool Pandi goes against it. Pool Pandi, a 1992 Supreme Court 3-bench judgment, which says that an advocate cannot be, as a matter of right, cannot be allowed as a matter of right. But there are indeed Supreme Court judgments which says that an advocate can be allowed with a certain audible directions. Let's say, for an example, with certain distance and audible certain distance by which the person can hear also. Some judgments which include Vijay Sajnani, Birinder Kumar Pandey, and many more judgments, these are the two major judgments which says that a person can have a right of an assistance of a counsel, not as a matter of right, but as and when the court deems fit, though with some distance and all that. Now, here the catch is that, can a person seek a presence of an advocate as a matter of right, as in when being called by ED, Enforcement Directorate, DG of Customs Act, or DG of the GST? Now, there is again cleavage of opinion with respect to various high courts on this, what would be the proper recourse of it. And as far as I have studied and as far as I've known, this issue needs to be settled with respect to the specific GST and the Customs Act by the Honorable Supreme Court, not with the High Court, by the Honorable Supreme Courts. Now, I'll just read it one more time, Section 108 of the Customs Act, which I was reading it. Every such inquiry as aforesaid shall be deemed to be a judicial proceedings within the meaning of Section 193 and 228 of the Indian Penal Code. Clause 3. All persons so summoned shall be bound to attend either in person or by an authorized agent. Such such officer may direct all persons who summoned shall be bound to state truth upon subject respecting where they are examined or make statements and produce such documents and other things may be required. So the gist of section 108 is that it's a judicial proceedings and the concerning officer who is summoning a person has a power to verify the statements on oath. Now I may take the readers to section. I'll take my viewers to section 30 of the Advocates Act 1961. It's a very interesting thing which I've tried to correlate it. Section 30 of the Advocates Act 1961 goes as to state that right of advocates to practice, subject to provision of. I'll just read it. It's a very short, but I think it requires a verbatim reading. Subject to provision of this act, every advocate whose name is entered in the state roll shall be entitled as of right to practice throughout the territories to which this act extends, in all courts, including Supreme Court, before any tribunal or person legally authorized to take evidence, and before any authority or person before whom such advocate is by or under any law for the timing in force entitled to practice. Now, if we can correlate section 30 with respect to section 108 of the Customs Act, I would go on to state that it's since the proceeding under section 108 is categorically a judicial proceedings, and if you entailing a prosecution under section 193 and 228, 193 is obviously that is submitting of false statements. So, according to my little knowledge and experience as I've gained in this field, an advocate has an inherent right of practice that is of accompanying a person as in being summoned under PMLA, Customs, or the GST Act by virtue of section 30. Section 30 got it enforced in I think section 30 got enforced later on. I'm missing the original date for its enforcement, but still, after its enforcement, it has attained a very much importance in the life of an advocate to practice before any authority. The same provision can be equally be established with respect to the family courts, family courts, wherein also the the authority has a right to where the proceedings are also under the nature of a judicial proceeding where the evidence is also. That is a separate topic. I'll be dealing with this. It's not required as we are being under the GST and the Customs Act only. So an advocate has a right to practice before any authority legally to take evidence and a judicial proceeding. So by virtue of section 30 of the Advocates Act, we can say that if a person being summoned, an advocate can, as a matter of right, can go. Now there is again two catch in this. If one can imagine the two catches that okay, you are saying that there's a violation of a fundamental right of an advocate to practice, but how can we correlate with this of a fundamental right of a person who has been summoned? There is a judgment of not with respect to the Customs Act, but with respect to a competition DG of the Director General of the Competition Commission of India, that is Oriental Commerce of Delhi High Court. It was an earlier single bench judgment, went on to the division bench, which says that it can be correlated if a person is being summoned under article, being summoned by the authorities, and the proceeding under which can be categorized as a judicial proceeding, you can say that his right has been much or less correlated to the fundamental rights of an advocate. Goes without saying, it's an interpretation. It's an interpretation of the judgment. There is one more judgment as well of Kingfisher of Honorable High Court, but this Kingfisher judgment later on got it overruled by the Honorable Supreme Court of India in Messrs. Jar Developers, authored by Justice Rohington, Honorable Justice Rohington Fali Nariman. That is a separate point. Now, as a matter of right, an advocate can practice before GST, before the inquiries under Section 108 of the Customs Act, more or less similar under PMLA and the GST Act. Now, the first protection is that you can go under 226 seeking a protection from imminent arrest. That is there if provided you can make a very exceptional case for interference, seeking interference by this court. Secondly, you can seek a video conferencing. That's after late 2020 judgment of Honorable Supreme Court. More or less, it covers everything, but still it holds the ground. Secondly, you can seek an assistance of a counsel, both as a matter of right and as a matter of discretion also. But still, there are judgments of various honorable high courts, including our honorable high court, which says that an advocate cannot, the authorities under section 108 does not come under the purview of section 30 of the Advocates Act. Sorry, the authorities under section 108 of the Customs Act does not come under the purview of the Advocates Act. That is a separate thing. That's but this issue, as far as I'm concerned, has not been dealt to this extent by the Supreme Court, which I hope will be dealt by the Supreme Court. So now after these three riders, which certainly will give a kind of an assistance of a person who is being summoned under section 108, provided if he claims that he's innocent and he's been falsely roped. These are all matters of these are the all canons which he can use, which he can, if provided if he can make his case extraordinary. Now there is one more topic which says that there is one more catch under this: right to practice. What do you mean by right to practice? Now there is a Supreme Court judgment of A.K. Balaji 2018, authored by Adarsh A.K. Goel, Honorable Justice, got retired Adarsh Kumar Goel. Though it was with respect to the foreign law firms, the Supreme Court judgment dealt with the various appeals from Honorable Bombay High Court and Madras High Court. But this judgment too included that, too guided that, and that the right to practice involves preparing briefs, giving an opinion. So you can say that under this, a right to practice can be equated with giving an opinions, not opinions to a client, and with respect to his or her cases, not specially limited to argue before a court. There was another one more case of the Honorable Supreme Court in Macquarie Bank. It's a 2019 Supreme Court judgment, which also very beautifully, again authored by Honorable Justice Rohinton Fali Nariman, which beautifully articulates how what do you mean by a right to practice under right to practice of an advocate? What are the various things which comes under the purview of a right to practice? Now these are the basic safeguards which can be adopted by a person as and when he is being summoned, being under section 108 or the Customs Act or the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now this is after covering this topic, I'll be dealing with one more thing, which says that, just a minute. So with this, I would like to conclude my lecture on this point, and I hope I would have given a brief insight on this topic, though it's a very vast topic. It includes various insights, but I believe I've combined the basic outline of it. And there are various other Supreme Court judgments of the various constitutional bench judgments of constitutional bench judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, which goes on to state that it's a fundamental right of an advocate to practice, and after it being notified with the Honorable by the Union, it has been notified. It is it's a very much fundamental right of an advocate to practice before the authorities. And if you connect it with be it of the inquiries in the Customs Act, GST, and PMLA, it can be the inquiries could have been much simpler, and it would further, according to my interpretation, it would be a further aid and much speedier for the quick redressal of the claims, be it in terms of be it from the view of investigating agency and the accused person. So with this, I would like to conclude my lecture, and with again a vote of thanks to Jai Bhaiya for inviting me for such a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naqvi, for your valuable insights on this topic. This is something that we come across on a number of occasions with respect to whether these inquiries that are conducted under the provisions of these acts, be it the Customs Act, be it the GST Act, be it the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, do they qualify to be judicial proceedings? Because necessarily the evidence can be read not just before a court of law, but also an adjudicating authority. And if so, then can right to counsel be a matter of right that can be exercised by the parties or not? So I'm sure the viewers have immensely benefited from this presentation of yours. And thank you so much for taking our time from your schedule. So thank you so much, everyone. Stay tuned. The next episode is on its way. Please like, subscribe, and share my channel. And stay home, stay indoors. Please be safe. So it's goodbye for now. Thank you, Mr. Naqvi, once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome.